Well, hey everybody, and welcome to Spero Day. My name is David Perez, and I am the lead minister of this very, very unique church in Nashville, Tennessee. And you know, there is so much shifting, so much happening in American and Western Christianity, and Spero Day is really in the forefront of that. We're really helping to pioneer a new kind of Christianity, one with a more gentle orthodoxy, and one that we think is very relevant for the 21st century. So if you were watching in, some other American city or state, some other international city or country, or even right here in Nashville, I just want to welcome you. Welcome to Spero Day.
Hello, my name is Tom, and I'm welcoming you to Spero Day. And I've been coming here for almost 5 years since the beginning, and there's so much that I appreciate about Spero Day. And one thing is, I'm a part of the LGBTQ plus community, and I feel accepted, and it's like big whoop, I'm gay. No one really cares, and it's really nice to come to a place where you are welcomed. And you know that you have some parents around you that have LGBTQ plus kids, and I didn't really realize that until I got to know some of these parents and became friends with them. And that's another thing that I just love, because we have such community here, and when everything in the outside world is feeling chaotic, I come here and it feels like a sane place to be, and it feels like a refuge, and it feels like I can be on my journey, my spiritual journey, my relationship with God, the ups and downs of that, and I can just be me. And I hope you, as a viewer, as somebody who's here, I hope you join me in a journey that you find fulfilling, and you find that you are able to grow in ways that you never dreamt possible. So welcome.
Well, okay, let me ask you a question as I start off. If you were asked what expresses the most kind of lived out or life out loud heart of Christian spirituality, what would you say? If someone were to live out their spiritual life or religious faith in a Christian way, what would you say that is? Well, given the number of watchers and listeners today, it might be different for each of us, right? Because we're all impacted by our different backgrounds, our different experiences, our different personality wirings. But some might say a lived out faith is really a life of love and compassion. Some might say it's a life of dedication and service. Some might say it's about being a humble person, or to be a put others first kind of person. Others would say, no, it's about living a holy life, a life of good character, good morality. It's about being obedient and devout. But what would you say it is? And then just my question, for some, it triggers the whole concept of something negative of what living Christian even means, because for them it ended up being, Bible thumpers and verse quoters, or it meant a certain political ideology or politicizing a moral agenda. For others, it meant proselytizing and evangelism. Our job is to get people into heaven, save people from hell. For others, it's this hyper rigid doctrine, a version of Christianity that we need to pass on. What would you say? And I have to admit something about my own life, that list I kind of went through. I gave it my best shot in a number of those with a very sincere heart. But going through all of that and even shifting in my faith, my Christian spirituality and my connection to Christ, this is something that is still very important to me. And to answer that question, what does Christian spirituality look like? I keep returning back to the Beatitudes, which I'm going to read to you in just a sec. Now, let me just give you a little setup here. Why this strange word, Beatitudes? What are they? Well, the Beatitudes are 8 proverb-like sayings by Jesus Christ. There's no greater narrative around them. They're just these 8 blessings, and each of the 8 has 2 phrases. Like, let me show you one. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Now, the first phrase always describes some sort of life condition, and in this case, a peacemaker, which all of these life conditions are very familiar to a Jewish audience. They're very familiar to the Jewish Bible. But then the second phrase is then the result of that condition lived out in a blessed way. And in this way, peacemakers are then the result is they are children of God. Some say that the Beatitudes, they echo the highest form of teaching of life and love and compassion by Jesus. Now, this different word, beatitude, what is that? Well, in the 4th century, the Catholic Pope wanted a singular version of the Bible because there were many versions kind of being used. And so the Pope wanted a single version in Latin. So he commissioned St. Jerome, who was the leading scholar of his day, to translate the Bible from Greek into Latin. And it was called the Latin Vulgate. And that word blessed in Latin is beati. And then, and so that's where it comes from. Now, it took almost over 1,000 years for then that word to be Anglicanized into the current word we have, beatitude. Now, I know you're going, wow, David, that's really interesting. You must be a big hit at a dinner party. Let's get on. Read these Beatitudes to me, which I will. So, but remember, number 1, part of the phrase is a condition of life. Number 2 is then the result of that condition. So here we go. Blessed are those who know they need God, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to them. Blessed are those who grieve, for they will be comforted. Blessed are those who are humble, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who are hungry and thirsty for justice, for they will be filled. Blessed are those who show mercy, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are those whose hearts are pure, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who suffer for doing what is right, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to them. Okay, so there they are. There's the 8 of them. Now, the context of this is Jesus is on the slope of a large hill in northern Israel overlooking the Sea of Galilee. And the Beatitudes, in a sense, are a preamble to what will be the larger Sermon on the Mount. Now, when he was on that hill, the makeup of his listeners was quite interesting. In Jesus' day, they would have thought or hoped or believed that the Jewish Messiah would be a powerful military force or a great kingdom leader and kind of run the Roman occupiers out and return the Jewish state back to a religious state. Religiously, it was very complex. Jesus lived in a very religious world with lots of professional religious people. There were Pharisees and Sadducees and Essenes and Zealots. The Pharisees were the doctrinaires. They believed that true faith was obeying all the things of Scripture and their tradition, obeying the biblical doctrines. The Sadducees were focused more on the present, and in a sense, they were a little more religiously flexible in their doctrines. The Essenes, they were serious ascetics. They believed that authentic faith meant you separated yourself from society. So they lived a very austere and remote life out in remote areas like around the Dead Sea. And the Zealots, the Zealots were the fanatical nationalists who thought that right religion, it is centered on radical political and social activism, even violent if need be. Now, of course, that was way back when. We don't have any of that kind of stuff like that today, right? I mean, not at all. But then right in the middle of that, Christ teaches this. In fact, all of the 8 conditions he lists, each one of those professional religious people I mentioned, all the conditions that Jesus listed, they, in some form or fashion, would have marginalized that kind of life condition. But Jesus' teaching, it's not about doctrinal absolutes, whether they're right or left. It's not about political, cultural, social wars. What really determines a spiritual life is in your heart. Well, as I said, Jesus, especially through the Beatitudes, is stressing that a spiritual life comes internally through the heart. I love what Reverend Debbie Thomas says the Beatitudes are not. One of the things she says is there's no schmaltz here. You know, the Beatitudes are not like a Hallmark greeting card. Jesus wasn't waxing sentimental when he speaks of blessing and favor and happiness and good fortune. You know, it's very easy in our consumeristic culture to allow a word like blessing to become so colloquial that it becomes bland and meaningless. You know, like I am so #blessed, or it just becomes about material comfort, personal success. The Beatitudes are not Band-Aids. They're not meant to settle or soothe or lull us asleep. The Beatitudes are to startle us awake. And yes, they are ministerial. They are pastoral. They definitely can give us hope, but it's not a hope like a sedative. It's the kind of hope that opens the door. She also says the Beatitudes are not some to-do list, a check-off to-do items. They're not suggestions, they're not instructions, they're not commandments or quid pro quos. There's nothing transactional about them. Nothing here smacks of a should, a must, an ought. It is emphatically deeper than that. I mean, about grieving people, hungry people, thirsty people, peaceable people, suffering, persecuted people, that this is talking about, that God looks to blessing, and that blessing is already there, present there. Thomas says these are not about shame. No shame allowed here. And they're not inducements of shame. The point isn't to read the litany of these blessings about the poor and disenfranchised and then walk away and go, oh man, I'm spoiled, I'm overprivileged, I'm just awful that way. No, the listener is neither to shame themselves or self-condemn themselves. Both of those things kind of cripple us to defeat. The last thing the Beatitudes should do is paralyze those who hear them. It should awaken them. She also talks about they are not passive. They are really about justice. To use Jesus's teachings about sorrow and meekness and poverty and persecution to keep oppressed people oppressed is, in his words, to render them, that would be monstrous. There is nothing in the Beatitudes that excuses injustice in any way, that relativizes abuse or the tolerance of suffering people. There's nothing in them. The Beatitudes, they're not platitudes. The Beatitudes are not some pie in the sky. When Jesus is talking to his listeners about the kingdom of heaven, he's not asking them, hey, you better grit your teeth and bear it patiently until death comes along and then you get heaven. There's none of that, as if the afterlife is some kind of opiate later to this messy earth we live. Jesus isn't painting that kind of picture at all. He's talking about mercy, and it's through these heart moves of compassion that we experience God. The Beatitudes are about life here that is already, and a life not yet that is up ahead. It's about the reality of God's justice and mercy that is already within us and then awaits us to where we are moving our lives to. So the Beatitudes are not those kind of things. So then what are they?
If I'm honest, I'm missing you more than I should. Loving you more than I thought I could. If I'm honest, if I'm honest, I wanna steal your heart forever now, so we can wait and play it all out. But if I'm honest, I have waited all this time. I've searched the world only to find you're the one I wanna make all mine. If I'm honest, if I'm honest, I wanna catch every single tear